All right, hi everyone. Welcome back to the second episode of Twins Talk Arse. My name is Andreas Abraham, and this is my twin brother here.
My name is Anastasis.
And yeah, we're talking just after Arsenal beat Newcastle 2-0. So we're going to go into like the game, our opinion on the players, and how the manager did, and what kind of performance we put in, and then how we're going to do coming up. So if you'd like to like or subscribe, please feel free to below. This is a new channel, so we're really looking forward to getting some new viewers and having some more kind of feedback so we can continue to develop. Stats, how did you think the game went today?
Yeah, I think it went well overall. At the end of the day, another win, another clean sheet.
Yeah.
So you can't complain from that aspect. But it was definitely a very hard fought game.
Yeah, I think today Leno really sort of earned his reputation. Like a lot of people were doubting him after we sold Martinelli. And to be fair, with good reason, Martinelli's done very well at Aston Villa. But Leno today, that was an unbelievable save to keep us in it. And we would have been out of our competition if Leno hadn't made that save.
Yeah, 100%. It was a very good save from Leno. I think, when you look at Leno's performances, he has had some performances which have been better than others. He has had some performances which haven't been the best. This season, he's not maybe been the most consistent, but he did have a good game today. He made some very important saves.
Yeah.
When you think of the chance at the end that Andy Carroll had, easily, that could have gone in the back of the net and that would have changed the game completely. So Leno made a very strong save, kept us in the game, and ultimately allowed us to kind of build that platform to win the game.
Yeah, I agree. I think he was commanding in the box. And I think another player that was commanding and kind of led us to a clean sheet was Pablo Mari as well. I kind of don't see how we can drop him. He's been excellent for us every game. I think it shows how well he's played that we've never spoken about him at the end of a game to say like, oh, he made a mistake. Oh, I'm worried about him. He just slotted straight in and has been doing a pretty bang up job.
Yeah, of course, I completely agree with that. I think when you look at Pablo Mari's performances, he's played very well in the games that he's played for Arsenal. Unfortunately, he hasn't played enough games for us
Yeah.
with his injury problems in the early part of his career. But, the games that he has played, he has looked very promising. I think, at this moment in time, some of the key positives for Arsenal are, you've got Pablo Mari playing well to an extent, looking indispensable when he's playing.
Yeah.
You've got Rob Holding. I know he didn't play today, but when he does play, he looks undroppable. He's on really good form at the moment. Gabriel's another one at the moment that, again, he's on really good form defensively. So, we've got a handful of players, which I think we haven't been able to say this about Arsenal for a while. We've got a handful of players which, you're looking at Arsenal defensively and they could form a good basis, a good solid foundation from which we can keep clean sheets and,
Yeah.
build from there and like carry on and get more wins. I think, I completely agree. I think Mari's played very well since he's come into the team, and based on this performance, why not keep him in? Have him and Rob Holding maybe in the against Crystal Palace and see how things go. They're
Yeah.
both on great form.
They've both been played very well together, and I kind of struggle to see how Gabriel justifies coming straight back in. He is a great player, but at the moment they've been doing very well together. And we're talking about three centre backs at Arsenal. This is not even talking about the man of the hour, Kieran Tierney. That guy has had an unbelievable 2 games. And it's been a long time since we've been able to speak about 4 Arsenal defenders with like such high praise as we're doing right now.
Yeah, very true. Did I hear that Kieran Tierney was warming up in a vest today? Was it?
Yeah.
um,
The snow doesn't touch that boy.
I completely agree. I think when you watch Kieran Tierney, especially in recent performances, he's bossing it down the left hand side.
Yeah.
At this moment in time, one of the best left backs in the league, if not the best. I mean,
Better than Andy Robertson.
I mean, everyone was talking about Robertson last season, but there's only one Scottish left back at this moment in time.
Andy Robertson is, he's a fantastic player. I'd say the kind of difference is he's got a Liverpool team around him, which is unbelievable. He's got Mo Salah, he's got Mane, he's got Firmino, he's now got Jota as well. And Tierney doesn't have that kind of backup around him. He's got Abba and he's got Laka. They're not quite on that level. Maybe Abba is, but he's still making things happen. You know, he's still being consistent defensively and ripping other teams apart. Today, he was going past defenders like they weren't even there. Like he was
Yeah.
just easily running past them.
Yeah, no, 100%. He's got a great turn of pace. What I would probably say is when you compare when you compare Tierney to Robertson, like you touched on before, you know, Robertson has got like Mane in front of him, so a great player both offensively and also defensively. When you compare that to Tierney, you know, he's got Willian in front of him, so there's not really a comparison.
And then he's also got Van Dijk next to him in the back four. Well, he had last season. And we've really had to kind of cope with some not so great defenders, but now they all seem to be working together as a unit better. And I think that's down to the kind of work that Arteta has done on the training ground. You know, we went from conceding the most amount of goals from set pieces last year to having, I think, the least amount conceded this year in the Premier League. That's amazing work on the training field to get us there.
Yeah, of course. We are much better this season. And you could see it. We're much better this season defensively. You can see it by our recent performances, and you know, in comparison to games last year where we maybe would have conceded in certain situations or would have gone on to lose games when we were in a bad position in a game or whatever it may be. You can definitely tell that we've been worked on defensively, which is a big bonus. It's a big plus. I mean, when you look at how Arsenal have been in recent seasons, we have been conceding too many goals, both against the big teams where we've tended to lose quite heavily pre-Arteta, and also against the smaller teams, we've maybe lost or drawn games which really we shouldn't have lost or drawn. So it's definitely a project. You know, it's definitely going to take a few years for Arteta to get the team he wants and also playing the way he wants. But, you know, I think if we keep the faith in Arteta, we did go through a tough patch earlier on this season. We've now won 4 games on the bounce. And we can hopefully build from there.
Yeah, it is important to remember that we did have that blip, I think. But when we were coming towards sort of the end of Wenger's reign, I think the reason there was a lot of frustration from fans was even though we were finishing 4th, we were seeing the same team and the same frailties year after year almost. And, you know, for a long time, we were getting the same kind of feedback that we needed a new centre-back, a commanding centre-back. We needed to be able to defend set pieces, and we needed a commanding central defensive midfielder, because it was always the same frailties with Arsenal. And although Arteta did go through that hard patch, at least those frailties are finally being dealt with. You know, you can't have much better than being the team that's conceded the least amount of goals from set pieces. So it's nice to see that we've worked on our weaknesses.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think, you know, I completely agree with that. I think defensively, Arsenal have been a lot better this season than they have been in previous seasons. It maybe has hindered us, though, offensively, slightly. Aubameyang has not been as effective as he was last season. Whether that's to do with his new contract potentially, or, you know, due to external or due to other factors, you know, William playing and not playing up to his full potential, has that had an impact? You know, Pepe, we're giving him quite a lot of game time, but again, he's not really lived up to the heights. But now that the younger players are coming in, they're showing what they're all about. You know, the game today, another great performance from Emil Smith-Rowe, another good performance from Saka, good performance from Tierney. You know, we're quite clearly seeing now that certain players are kind of the DNA of Arsenal at this moment in time, and they're kind of undroppable, which is good. But then you've also got that reliance on the youth, which can they deliver week in, week out, and also in the big games when it really matters.
Yeah, I think this is something which I wanted to touch on, which was that we had a great sort of second half of extra time performance. But really, we got that through Arteta's substitutes, which was bringing on the people that have been playing well for us the last few games, Lacazette, Emil Smith-Rowe, Saka. And it makes me question a little bit, if these guys are becoming undroppable, then do we have the kind of strength and depth? Because we're relying on Emil Smith-Rowe, who's not got the best injury record, Martinelli, who got injured right before the game, devastatingly, So I guess I'm getting at that we need the other players such as Willian and Pepe to start sort of earning their money and really kind of performing at the same level that these teenagers are. Otherwise, I'm not sure we have the strength and depth to really go the whole season and finish fourth.
Yeah, I think we're in a position at the moment where the youth are definitely stepping up, to try and get Arsenal's season back on track, which is definitely a massive positive. It's definitely a bonus and something that you do want to see. But I do completely agree. I think on paper, we've got the strength in depth, but in reality, when you actually look at the performances of a lot of these players, it's not good enough, really.
Yeah.
You look at Willian. He had a great game against Fulham on the opening day of the season. He hasn't lived up to expectations since then. You look at Pepe, he came in for big money. He played well in the Europa League in the group stages, but he's not really delivered when it matters. He got his chance against Leeds, he got sent off. We've got a lot of players which, they can turn it on in the Europa League against slightly weaker opposition. But when it really matters in the Premier League, where we want to be competing for a Champions League space, and also ultimately, Arsenal, well, are a club that wants to compete for the league. I know at the moment we're a long way off it,
Yeah.
but it's because of these types of performances that we're a long way off it. If we had, Willian, who was on form, getting 10 goals, 10 assists in a season, playing how he did at Chelsea, if we had Pepe, getting 10, 15 goals in a season in the Premier League and getting 10, 15 assists as well, Arsenal would find themselves right up there if we had those two on form, complementing the youth that we have in our ranks.
Yeah, and
But
really, you've got to say that it was those players that let Arteta down really during that period where we weren't winning games. It's because he was picking experience, which as a new manager you understand that choice, but that experience wasn't delivering, and we needed sort of new recruits to come in and add new blood.
yeah, 100%. I think as good as it was that we turned to the youth, to an extent, it was one where his hand was forced. The experienced players weren't playing well. Willian was in close proximity with someone that had COVID, so he couldn't start in that game, which is in the Chelsea game, which is why we switched to the youth as well. It's another reason. It's a tough one. I think it's one where it's good that we've switched to the youth, but our hand was forced, and it's the experienced players which are earning the big money. These are the players that should be stepping up. It shouldn't really be up to the youth to try and push Arsenal forward. Don't get me wrong, it's great to see, but really, the guys, the more experienced guys that we're paying the big money to, these are the guys that should be stepping up and delivering week in, week out. I
Yeah.
mean, why do we pay them the big money otherwise?
Yeah, they're meant to be the sort of guiding lights which the kind of younger players can look to guide them. And at the moment, they're looking to the young players. But kind of talking about the experienced players, one experienced player that has really come into his own, I think, in these last few games has been Lacazette. And you know what? We needed him today. With him up front, we linked up better. He held the ball up better, and he was essential for Emil Smith Rowe finally getting his goal. So it kind of gets to the question that you're like, do we play Lacazette up front now and either keep Abbott on the left or take him out of the team completely? I know he got his goal today, which was a little bit of a tap in, and you hope that would lead to more goals. But if his performance is going to continue to struggle, does this justify Lacazette always being played through the middle?
Yeah, that's a very tough question. I think in terms of Aubameyang and his goal, I think it's a case of him being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah,
So, you can never undermine that in a forward. If he gets 20 goals in the season by doing that, you won't complain as an Arsenal fan. But I do agree completely. I think when you compare Lacazette's performances since he came on, he did change the game. He held the ball up much better for Arsenal. He brought others into play. He's in a very rich run of form at the moment. And also, I think, you've got to give credit to players like Emil Smith Rowe. By playing in that number 10 role, by playing in and around Lacazette, I think it kind of helps Lacazette, because now when he's holding the ball up and, the ball is falling off him to another player. Who is that player? It's Emil Smith Rowe. He's there or thereabouts. He's always getting on the end of it. And, I think Lacazette is enjoying himself playing football alongside Emil Smith Rowe,
yeah, I would
rather
agree.
than maybe feeling more isolated up top on his own. But it does beg the question of where does Aubameyang fit? Because if Aubameyang's not up top, do we put him on the left or do we drop him completely? And given that he's our big money signing, we don't really want another Ozil situation.
Yeah,
So,
I would agree.
but then is he effective on the left?
That is always the question which I come back to. When I see him linking up with Tierney on the left, he's a very good player, but whether he's got the pace to really trouble sort of defenders like you see Saka doing on the right, I'm not sure. And really, when you see Abba putting in balls into the box, you want him on the end of them. So yeah, it's a hard kind of balancing act. I think with Abba and Lacazette, every manager has had a hard time balancing getting both of them into the team. So maybe, towards the end of the year when Lacazette's contract is getting near to running out, I think we might see the squad readjusted a little bit. But talking about kind of the future, what a difference Emil Smith-Rowe made when he came on, and what a goal he scored as well. That was a finisher's goal. And that's maybe something with Ozil hasn't always had, that kind of ability to finish like that.
Yeah, no, very much so. I think, when you look at Emil Smith-Rowe, he's definitely a breath of fresh air to Arsenal. I think, when you look at his recent performances, he is still young, he's still learning the trade. He's still got a lot to learn, don't get me wrong. But, when you look at some of his recent performances for Arsenal, he has been a breath of fresh air. And he's got a good record, He scored in the Newcastle game. He got an assist. He's got an assist against Chelsea, I believe it was. He's playing well. He's doing well. And you can't ask for more from the young players. He's delivering when it matters.
Yeah, and also today you saw him tracking back. You saw him making you saw interceptions, and you also saw him making like really important tackles and running. And that's not something that you're getting from Mesut Ozil if you're playing Mesut in that position. Mesut does have eyes in the back of his head, but when you need the team to be one unit, sort of acting as one defensively, I don't think Mesut gives you that. And suddenly you've got a player like Emil Smith-Rowe that will. And I pray that the guy stays fit for the rest of the season.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think what I would say in regards to that is, when you compare someone like Emil Smith-Rowe, his statistics against Chelsea, which was his first start, since his injury, was his first Premier League start as well, under any manager. And it's like he ran more than any other player. He made more sprints than any other player. It's these type of things, which is what you want to see. He's the creative hub of the team, fine. He can link up play great, just as Ozil could, but he's also putting in the hard yards.
Yeah.
And I think that's a key thing. What I would probably ask you is, where does that leave Arsenal in terms of, do we sign a new number 10 in the January transfer window? Because as good as he is, he's young, and also he doesn't necessarily have the best injury record.
Yeah, I think this is a really difficult question, and something which Arteta kind of needs to balance, because I wouldn't want to drop Emil Smith-Rowe from the first team if he's not injured. I'd want him to keep playing and keep learning. That's how he's going to develop. That's how he's going to become a better player. And, he doesn't deserve to be dropped right now. He's putting in the performances which are winning us games. I do think that we need a player behind him, though, because if we're not playing Emil in that number 10 role, who gets that role? We've tried Lacazette there. Lacazette hasn't worked out. We haven't got Mesut Ozil now. So maybe bringing in a player on loan for 6 months, but somebody which knows they're not going to maybe get directly into the team, but can fill that role, maybe should be a priority. But if I was going to prioritize making a signing this transfer window, it has to be getting a goalkeeper, because once we lose Leno, we have no one to come in and fill those boots. Ronaldson is not good enough. And that's one thing I was quite happy about at the beginning of the game. Sad to not see Thomas Partey, sad to not see Martinelli come on, but happy that Arteta made the right decision and chose Leno, because the FA Cup is important to the club and to the fans as well. It's been our cup for the last few years.
Yeah, I completely agree. What I'd probably say is, in general, goalies don't tend to get injured, which is why it might not be top of his priority list, because in theory, Leno can play every game. But I do agree completely. I think it's one, we saw Ronaldson isn't really good enough. We saw the Man City game, that goal that he conceded from Mahrez's free kick. it's not really good enough, especially for a squad and a team like Arsenal. Although he's the number 2, you expect better, I think.
I mean, it's okay in the Carabao Cup, but I mean, we saw Leno get injured last year. We were lucky we had Martinez step into that. And we've seen Leno play a lot of games where his arms have been strapped up this year. So, if he does get injured and Ronaldson needs to start playing in the Premier League, those are tight games which we're going to start losing. So I would prioritize bringing in a goalkeeper. But yeah, what do you kind of think? What did you think of Andy Carroll being on the pitch today? Because that guy's caused us a lot of problems over the years.
I know. I think he seems to be a nemesis of Arsenal. He's the type of player which, he always crops up in the right place at the right time. To be fair to him, because of his height, he's always dangerous in the air, always dangerous from set pieces. He's also got a good left foot. He can really hit it potentially. He had a shot early on in the second half, which could have troubled Arsenal if it hadn't been deflected. I think even with the deflection, it was a bit of a trouble for Leno. He's that type of player. He can score, and he can score when it matters as well against Arsenal, which always seems to be the case. But in regards to Andy Carroll, I think that kind of goes back to our defence overall, where Andy Carroll is a dangerous forward, very much so, but our defence kept him quiet. So I think it's another thumbs up to our defence.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said. I think I was scared when I first saw him on the team sheet, but it's testament to the work that Arteta's done that we largely managed to keep him quiet, and that's not a guy that we've managed to keep quiet for a long time in previous sort of games. So just before you go, do you want to do a quick player rating on what you kind of saw today?
Yeah, sure. What do you want to start from back to front, or
let's go back to front? Let's start with the big man Leno in goal.
Sure. So I mean, Leno, I'd have to give a solid 8 out of 10, if not 8.5. I think he played very well. He made crucial saves in the game that kept us in it. He was good with his feet, good with his distribution. No complaints from him, to be honest.
Yeah, I would agree. I think he kind of earned his place as the number 1 today, and he's done it over the last few matches as well. But proved why we sort of kept him and trusted to keep him and sell Martinez.
Of course, Cedric, I have to give him a 5 out of 10. I think Cedric, was not up to speed today. He didn't really have a great game. His crosses, they don't tend to be on point, especially when you compare him to someone like Tierney on the other side. I don't think he offers enough at Arsenal. I don't think he's of the required quality. He's a good backup when we need to rest Bellerin, but personally, he's another player which I don't think we'll be too sad to see the back of.
I think he kind of, for me, represents the kind of player I feel like we should get in to back up Emil Smith-Rowe. Not somebody that's going to replace Emil, but somebody that can do a job. But also, I kind of don't understand that signing from Arsenal. That kind of takes me back to Kia's, the agent's influence at Arsenal as to why we signed him, because he's not doing that great, and he's definitely not looking to replace Bellerin, who has been a bit of a weak link at points for our first team.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, he definitely had potential maybe when he first came to Arsenal, but you look at Cedric at the moment and he's not lived up to the hype. All the expectation required of him at a big team like Arsenal.
So what about Paulo Mari?
Yeah, moving on to the 2 defenders, Mari and David Luiz. I would probably give each of them a 6.5 out of 10. I think they both had a good game. If you had to maybe rate one of them higher than the other, I think Mari had a slightly better game. His distribution was slightly better than David Luiz, but they both had a pretty solid game. They both kept Joe Linton and Andy Carroll quiet. Newcastle didn't create too much, which in part is due to their formation and their tactics, but is also due to how well I think our defenders played and how well our defenders coped with them.
So do you reckon you'd give Pablo an 8 and Luiz a 7?
Why not? We'll upgrade Mari to an 8.
Okay, cool. What about Tierney?
Yeah, I mean, Tierney, you have to give... I think probably a solid 10 out of 10 for Tierney. I mean, if anything, even just for the continual determination and the hard work that he put in, the graft that he showed, the leadership qualities, I don't think we can ask for more. He's one of the rare players at Arsenal, which he's got these characteristics, his leadership qualities that we haven't seen for such a long time.
Yeah, I think when people talk about Arsenal sort of needing leaders, he's exactly the type of player that we're talking about. And that guy's work rate right till the death is insane. 10 out of 10 for him today. Moving up to midfield, what did you think about our kind of midfield pairing?
Yeah, so El Neni and Willock, again, I'd probably give them both, maybe a 5.5, a 6 out of 10. I think Willock, he's struggling. He probably needs to go out on loan to get some serious game time.
Yeah.
But I think he did struggle with the game a little bit. He struggled in that deeper role. To be fair to him, it's not what he's used to. He plays in a more advanced role in general. But he did still struggle. It's Premier League opposition, and I think it showed. El Neni, I think he completed all of his passes in the first half, which is obviously a bonus. But again, it's one he makes very simple passes, and I think
safe passes.
Yeah, and I think it's one where he's good when we need someone who can follow instructions, who can be in the right position at the right time, which is good. But that's not the type of game that the Newcastle game was. In this game, we need someone who can make decisive passes and can really influence the game. And El Neni isn't really that type of player. It was a good performance overall from him. He didn't do anything wrong, but I think you can tell that both of them really are squad players. And yeah, Joe Willock probably needs to go out on loan to get some more game time.
Yeah, I think this is why I'm so excited to sort of see Thomas Partey back in the team, because not only is he going to sit in that position and do a job, he's also going to drive the team forward, and he's going to make sort of attacking, insightful passes, which are going to create chances for us. And he's got the kind of confidence and ability to do that. And El Neni, I like the guy. I think he's a good player, but I think ultimately he's a squad player, and I'm not sure I see him growing much more than that.
Yeah.
Reese Nelson, what did you think of Reese?
He did well since he came on at such short notice. He got called up at the last minute because of Martinelli's injury. Again, I think he's tough. I think he had a good first half. He looked promising in moments, but again, he's probably one that would benefit from a loan spell potentially, especially if we don't have injuries in that position, especially if Arteta is going to keep his faith in William. I think it might be best if we loan Reese Nelson out and he gets some game time. Really, I'd only rate him as well. I'd only rate him maybe a 5.5, a 6 out of 10. He did well in moments, but he didn't own that left-hand side.
Yeah. There's not really much I can say about the guy, to be honest. I didn't see much from what I did see. He as always is very eager to sort of make runs to kind of make things happen, which is a very good thing. But there were a couple of times where he lost the ball for us or ended up kicking the ball out of play a bit rashly. And I think with experience, he will learn to sort of make better decisions. Moving on to our front three, what did you think of Pepe, Willian, and Aber up top? We'll get on to the substitutes afterwards, but let's start with those guys first.
Yeah. Again, I mean, if we talk about Pepe and Willian first, I think overall they were largely disappointing. You can see why Arteta switched tactics in the sense that, from the Chelsea game and after that, we've moved more towards the youth. Again, this is Premier League opposition, but a very defensive Premier League team. So, really, you think Pepe and Willian can kind of leave their mark on this game, but they didn't really do anything too promising over their time on the pitch. I was largely disappointed with both.
Yeah, I think I agree. At least with Pepe, I saw him making an effort this game. I think he was working hard to try and make something happen. And there was a couple of times where the ball just bounced the wrong way, and he could have got a bit luckier to sort of have a chance created. He is not justifying his price tag at the moment, but at least I think as fans you can see that effort, and then you can respond to that. Willian, I'm not understanding why we're paying him this money. There was a few times where he lost the ball, he made a wrong decision, and I get that his confidence might be low, but we're not talking about a young player here. We're talking about a 32-year-old that's won pretty much everything in the game. So yeah, I would. What were your ratings again for Pepe and for Willian?
So in terms of ratings, I would probably give Pepe maybe a 5.5 if I'm being generous, and Willian a 3.
Harsh ratings,
Willian
yeah.
was terrible. I don't really have anything positive to say about him.
And finally, the big man up top, Abba. I think he grew into the game a little bit. But what was your thought on him?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think he did grow into the game. He had a few chances. He had that shot from outside the box, which he attempted, which, if that had gone in, everyone would have been raving. He had the goal at the end, which, increases his rating just that little bit. I'd probably give him a 6 overall. I think he did
Harsh
well.
ratings, yeah.
I think he did well in spurts, but again, I think given that he's our main man, given that he's on such a big contract, you expect more from him. He didn't hold the ball up as well as maybe he could have done. His link-up play, I think, is still lacking slightly. He's not got that link-up play that someone like Lacazette does.
Yeah.
But he scored, and that increases his rating.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of difference that you have between Aubameyang and a guy like Thierry Henry, who obviously is a legend at the club, so maybe it's a bit unfair to make this comparison. But Aubameyang is a great finisher, unreal finisher. Apart from that, when you look at like his hold-up play, his link-up play, the amount of assists that he gets, he doesn't really bring much else. He's like the icing on the top of a cake, right? You get the whole move done, everyone else works really well together, and Abba's there to always finish it. One of the best natural finishes that you can see. But if you suddenly need a striker to come in and actually mix it in, sort of help bring the team forward and help link the play up, suddenly he's struggling a little bit more. And I think that's what we got when we brought Lacazette in. But right at the end of the game, you see why you pay Abba the big money, trust him to be in the right place at the right time. And I've got to say, kind of with Pepe, I saw Abba's work rate today as well. Things weren't coming off for him, but he kept going, kept getting in the right places, and he got his goal in the end. So I think, yeah, a six is a good rating for Abba.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he Aubameyang is one that he doesn't shy away. I think he's like Tierney. He always puts in the hard yards and he tries his best. It doesn't always work out for him, but I do agree. I think with Aubameyang, he is a trier. He puts the work in, and yeah, if it doesn't work, he puts his head down and goes again and tries again. He doesn't let it get to him.
And lastly, the subs. This is the more positive part of the conversation, I guess.
Yeah, where to begin with the subs? I mean, Emil Smith Rowe, great. You'd have to give him a 9 or a 10 out of 10. He came on and influenced the game. Lacazette as well, you'd probably give him an 8 out of 10. He came on, he influenced the game. He made us more physical up top. He held the ball up better. Ultimately he got the assist for the first goal, which broke the deadlock. Yeah, I think our subs overall were good. Maitland-Niles, you can't really rate. He only came on for the final few minutes after Cedric's injury. But yeah, what did you think about them?
Yeah, I agree. I think this really is kind of testament to the manager as well. Although whether Arteta had a hard decision to make, because he pretty much saw the kind of performance that we were putting in the players that have done the job in the last few matches and they got on the result. But every single change that he made, apart from Ainsley Maitland-Niles, made a huge difference. You had Saka out on the wing, trying everything to kind of make something happen for Arsenal, and just the energy that he brings to this team really sort of picked up our momentum. I would have given him sort of a 7, and then with Emil was the difference today. I would have given him a 9, I think, as well. And then Lacazette, the more and more I see this guy, the more and more I think, why weren't you playing like this for us sort of months ago? We've seen a lot of the Lacazette, which can't really get holding games, can't really influence games. And suddenly in the last few, he's looking indispensable. I'd give him an 8, and I think overall I'd give the manager I'd give Arteta an 8. I think the game would have looked very different if Martinelli had started. Martinelli got injured, which Arteta couldn't really hope for. And also, I think he kind of wanted to rest the young players over such a busy period. So I don't blame him for not including them. And then it was his choice to make a change at the end, which won the game for us.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I'd give Arteta an 8. I think he made the changes, at the right time when they needed to be made. I do think it was the correct decision to try and rest our players which are in form in recent weeks, to try and rest Saka, Emil Smith-Rowe, Lacazette. We have played a lot of games in recent weeks. We are going to play a lot of games in the coming weeks and months. So, yeah, I think, where you can try and rest your players, you might as well, to try and avoid injury, and things like that. And yeah, he made the changes. He saw that it was needed. We weren't playing as well as we could do. The players that came in ultimately showed they weren't good enough. And so, Arteta made changes and brought in the players that needed to be brought on.
Yeah. All right. And last thing, what are you feeling about our next game?
Crystal Palace. I mean, it's always a tough game. Again, it's a tricky fixture. They're a team that's gonna look to try and score from set pieces with Benteke up front, and two, they're gonna try and look to hit us on the counter attack. It's going to be a very typical game that we're going to have a lot of possession in general, and yeah, they're going to try and hit us on the counter attack, and try and score from any little chance they get. And it's going to be a case of, can we break them down? Which is the real question. Hopefully, we'll get a 2-0 win. That's my prediction for the game, but we'll have to see what happens. What are your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I think as long as we manage to keep our old nemesis Zaha quiet, then I think we'll come out with the win. I'm going for a 2-1. I think Palace will pose a bit more of a threat than Newcastle did today going forward. But I think we've kind of got the momentum behind us now. And I think a lot of teams are going to crack under that momentum. So yeah, positive performance, and looking forward to our next few games.
100%.
All right. Thanks everyone for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe. If you liked what you saw, we're a young channel and we're still trying to grow. But yeah, up the Arsenal, and hopefully we'll continue to progress.